Hey guys, just wanted to check I'm live on Facebook as well. Live on Facebook and YouTube. Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. And welcome to part 1 of Dyslexia and goal setting, as I've called it. I was in two minds, as I often am. It's a lot easier when I decide the day before what I'm going to cover the next day if I have a certain topic. But I do like to be spontaneous and flexible, but it is difficult to get that right. But anywho, as it's a Thursday and I normally like to think of goal setting, I thought as I'm covering dyslexia, I want to talk about dyslexia and goal setting and that kind of thing. Even though I'm talking from a point of ignorance, as in I don't really know about it that much. I'm not like an expert on dyslexia and goal setting, but I thought I'd talk about it. And I just thought it was a quirky title, to be honest. But gotta admit, I haven't planned it out as well as I'd like, but I'm going to try and cover some of my personal goals for dyslexics, and hopefully dyslexics in Britain, America, Europe, and around the world will get involved in the discussion, talk about what your goals are. So please do post up your goals, and as ever, please post whatever you want in the comments. And I know yesterday I took a break. I didn't record anything. I sort of took it easy and all that kind of thing, but although I do try and enjoy these videos. But yeah, I probably should have posted something, but anyway, coulda, shoulda, woulda, as they say. But what was I going to say? Yeah, I was thinking about covering all the videos that I hadn't finished. Maybe I'll do that next week, all being well, on the, I think it'll be the 11th on Thursday. So maybe I'll cover, all being well, I'll cover or on the 21st, whenever that is, because I think I'm at 21 again. But anyway, here goes. So number one, as I say, I want to talk about my own personal goals and that kind of thing. And I know I'm quite an idealist and a dreamer, but I think you could perhaps have really, like, you could have goals, really low goals, like even just doing simple things like emptying and filling a dishwasher, taking the bins out, remembering things, cleaning, tidying up, or whatever, if you have the energy, or whatever it might be, or try and push yourself to have the energy to do those things. And then a worst case scenario perhaps, and then a medium case scenario, and then a best case scenario, or even scenarios in between those things. But I thought I'd talk about my own personal goals, and maybe even like a bucket list and what I hope to achieve and that kind of thing. What I'd like my legacy to be, or a better way of putting it, I think, than legacy would be my life's purpose and mission, or even missions and purposes. That's the word. But yeah, trying to think about what I would like to achieve. Now on Thursdays I like to think more realistically if I can. I do struggle to do that, but I do like to think realistically if I can, not like dyslexic trillionaires or stuff like that, or even mere billionaires. I'm partly joking, but on a serious note, I like to think more realistically. And then on Fridays, if I can, I like to think more dream driven, like bigger dreams. But I know I do struggle to think realistically. I'm quite a delusional dreamer after all, to be honest, but as you might be able to tell, you've seen my other videos. But yeah, I thought I'd talk about my own personal goals, but again, I'd love for other people to get involved and talk about what your personal goals are out there, especially dyslexic people, and also like people generally, but especially dyslexics, dyscalculics, dyspraxics, dysgraphics, and maybe even disabled people generally, as I'm trying to focus on those groups for December due to my use of alliterations. One of my more selfish goals is to benefit, well, my most selfish goal, I suppose, is to benefit Italian football, teams like Roma and Torino, and Italian football generally, the national team, which I hope to talk more about tomorrow, and that kind of thing. And remembering my train of thought, but I was thinking, like, because I'm thinking like point number one, I'm thinking looking after number one. As some people say, you got to just get started. Just start. My cousin used to say to me, I know I mentioned it a few times, but like when I talk about business ideas, he said, just start, just do it. And I didn't quite get it. I thought if I knew how to do it, I would have done it. But I suppose they say take action and be prepared to fail and take risks and that kind of thing. But yeah, I'd love to know from dyslexics what their goals are, but also I hope to encourage my fellow dyslexics and those other groups I talk about perhaps as much as possible, those with things in common with me, to support my goals as well, my benefit in travel. I'd love for us to travel to Italy and show what we can do with our talents, to promote our tactics, TikToks as we might call it, Tic-Tacs even. But seriously, on a serious note, I just show our what we could do for talent football and tactics and things like that with our creativity and other talents between us. especially dyslexics, not so much I suppose dyspraxics, but maybe even dyscalculics could find a purpose in doing that. So if they're not very confident with their maths or reading or whatever it might be, they could find something else to do. Through football, it could give us a purpose, and networking and that kind of thing. But yeah, I was going to say, so selfish goals of mine are like to benefit the town football, to not have to work hard, to be able to eat and drink whatever I like. I'm guilty of gluttony, and well, I shouldn't probably say, I'm going to spell it out, but L-U-S-T. But yeah, greed and gluttony and that kind of thing. But as Christians would call it, sins of the flesh or whatever. To not deny your own pleasures. But anyway, moving on that note. Number 2, as I say, I'd like to talk about my own goals, but also talk about and listen to other dyslexic people, and again, dyspraxics, dysgraphics, dyscalculics, and people with different disabilities, physical, mental, or learning disabilities. When I think of disabilities, I normally think of people in a wheelchair, but I suppose it could be people with Zimmer frames, crutches, or whatever they're called, walking sticks, or people with Alzheimer's, dementia, or all sorts of different disabilities, diabetes, asthma, blindness, deafness, or basically anyone who could be classed as disabled. I mean, some people might say we all have a type of disability somewhere. Probably pretty much everyone has some sort of disability, perhaps, maybe. I don't know if that's true or not, but yeah, perhaps people who class themselves as disabled and are registered as disabled or whatever, talking about your goals. So, as I say, especially if you're dyslexic or dyspraxic or have any disability, physical, mental, or whatever, please feel free to talk about your goals and what sort of things you think could build your confidence. Number 3, I'd love to get more dyslexics into tech. I think of things that begin with T. I'd love for us to. I talked recently about how, and I've talked in the past about how I'd love to. I think this is an idea I only came up with this year actually, but how I'd love for us to. Might come up with it last year, I'm not sure, but anyway, how I'd love for us to invest and have our money invested on our behalf to the point where we would be free to choose whether we want to work or not. So an investment fund that could give us at least enough money where we could choose, let's say, if we want to work or not. If you work, I suppose you can make more money, but without relying on benefits or anything that's illegal or anything like that. But being free to choose like whether you want a job or not. That's a goal I've got for dyslexics and those other groups I talk about, I guess. And also supporting each other on YouTube and TikTok, and I hope to, on that note, write to YouTube and TikTok to or share these videos to say, could you promote the content of dyslexic or other disabled YouTubers and TikTokers or whatever on your platform, respectively. And yesterday I was thinking, because it was a third, I was going to talk about, and I perhaps got a bit lazy, but I was going to talk about like how I think no one is 100% free. Although I support libertarianism, I'd love for people to be as free as possible. And I wish to God there was less rules and less laws. And the less rules and less laws there are, or least rules and least laws there are, the more freedoms we would have. And on that note as well, I think people with disabilities, such as, including even dyslexia, dyspraxia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and any other disabilities, I think should be tax exempt. I think that would be pretty cool, as I say, answering to that. But as ever, I support freedom of speech and freedom of expression as a libertarian. So if you disagree with me on anything, please do let me know in the comments. I know that's pretty much always asked that one. Probably I should try reverse psychology and say, please don't comment in the comments, and then probably those are people for other comments, or maybe not. But moving on, number 4, I'd also love to promote peace projects, be the peace you want to see. And I always say pretty much always say my controversial thing about how I don't believe in joining militaries or supporting weapons trade, military industrial complex, wars, and all that kind of thing going on. So, as I say, I'd love to discourage people from joining militaries, including my fellow dyslexics, dyspraxics, dysgraphics, dyscalculics, or whatever. Well, actually, I don't know if I have all those conditions, but people with those related conditions or whatever, basically related conditions generally, and maybe even people with mental health problems as well. Yeah, I think if less people join the military, we'll see the peace we want to see, especially if that was done globally. If no one, as someone put it, an idea for the next war, no one show up. And personally, again, talking about my own personal goals, and I'd love to read from and hear from other people, especially disabled people and whatnot, dyslexics and whatnot. Again, people might class dyslexia and all those other conditions I talked about as a disability. I suppose it's called a learning disability, or some people might say learning difference. But yeah, I'd love to read from and hear from other people. But although I welcome in these videos for anyone to comment, so you don't have to be dyslexic or even disabled or whatever to comment, but I welcome all comments. But I'd especially love to read from and hear from my fellow dyslexics and people with those similar conditions. So I encourage people to post, as they. But yeah, I love to promote right to resist, which is something I've talked about again in the past, and it's a bit like there's courage to resist and all that kind of thing. I think that's by veterans or whatever who now don't want to be in the military. But I think the right to resist would be the right to resist. Basically, for me, would be an organisation I'd love to set up with fellow pacifists / conscientious objectors or whatever that would talk about. And again, I'd love to encourage dyslexics and dyspraxics, dyscalculics, dysgraphics, and maybe even disabled people generally, perhaps, to support this and work together. And that's one thing I think I'd love to set up, is like networks for such groups and networks to empower disabled people and that kind of thing. But what we would do if we can set that up, at the moment it's just me with an idea, but if I could create that, then what we would do, what I would do if I could, but working together, as I said, with other people. So what we would do is get rid of forced conscription if we can around the world. So no country would be able to force people, although that would be hard to prove whether they were being forced or not. So they'd have to sign something. But I suppose people could be sort of coerced or forced into it, unfortunately. But or even being tortured or tormented to it. But we'd have a group that tries to ensure that doesn't happen as much as possible. I also think it'd be good to try and stop any war profits, make it as difficult as possible to profit from wars, and I'm sure we'll see a much more peaceful world. And also to ensure that no new country like Britain or America or Germany or wherever, France or whatever, creates forced conscription. So countries that already have it, I'd love to get rid of them from there. And if not, at least make sure no new countries have forced conscription. So who's with me? I'd love to know. So yeah, if you support me, please post. I support you in the comments as well. And again, whatever you want to post. If you disagree with me, please let me know as well. Yeah, also, I think we should be able to divest. I'd love, on that note, actually, I could have said this in point number 3, but I'd love for taxpayers not to be forced to pay for things that they don't want to. Now, let's say I support something. I don't think I should force other people to support that thing just because I support it. But I'd love for the taxpayers to have complete choice over where their tax money goes. And maybe, who knows, maybe more people will be prepared to pay for it if they knew it was going to things they agree with anyway. Obviously, there's got to be within reason, because otherwise people will just say, well, I'll pay myself tax money. People probably already do that. But there could also be sorry, be back. Let's go again. Let my cat out. Sorry guys, I heard my cat scratch on the door, so I thought he was stuck, but he's not. I don't know what happened there, but I just messed about. I know I'm not the most professional, but anyway, I'm not doing my videos like that. That's one of the weaknesses of doing so. But yeah, sorry. So I'd love for taxpayers to be able to choose where their money goes. I think that's one of the biggest policies I'd love to see, is like tax choice, so people could choose to divest from wars, the weapons trade, militaries, the military industrial complex and things like that, and be able to pay for things like healthcare, education and things like that. Also, I'd love to tax wars, tax like war profits, to make it pretty much impossible to benefit from war, like financially, and to make it illegal to lobby for wars, and also to, or at least as hard as possible, as I say, to lobby for and to profit from wars. Won't make me popular amongst war profiteers, to be fair, but if I'm honest, I would love to do that kind of stuff. And so those are some of the political policies I would have. And also, I'd cut military spending and spending on the weapons trade by 10%, my favourite figure, 10%, so that money could be spent on providing clean water, shelter, food, drink, sheltered accommodation for homeless people, training centres for homeless people and things like that. Another thing is, before I move on to point number 5, sorry, I'm going to just quickly say as quickly as I can that I would love to have peace through football. I'll probably talk more about it tomorrow, all being well, and over the weekend, but tomorrow being Friday, of course, for anyone who might be watching in the future there. But yeah, I would love to have peace through football now. As a fan of Italian football and Celtic, you probably know what I'm going to say, you've seen my other videos, but I'd love to see as much of the money that investors invest into the weapons trade, investors like BlackRock or anyone else, that money to instead be invested into Italian football teams. Now I go on alliterations when it comes to Italian football teams, so I'd say BlackRock to invest in Bari or Bologna, for instance, Blackstone, same sort of thing. Or one could invest into one, the other could invest into the other. Barclays to invest in Bari, and that kind of thing. So to discourage investors from investing into wars and the weapons trade, and instead invest into Italian football and Celtic. And I'd love to have ideas to work with. I normally say Football Fridays, but I thought TH could also have a sound like F, so it could be Football Thursdays as well. But for that money to instead be invested into funneled into Italian football and Celtic, and I'd also love for Italian football and Celtic to act as tax havens as well. But I could talk more about that. I'm going to go to talk about that over the weekend, hopefully, if not tomorrow, hopefully Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday as well, perhaps even. But and in the future, I'm sure I'll get around to talking about that. So I'm going to move on. I do waffle now, but I'm going to move on. I said to point number 50, and then point number 5. So I'd love to, as I encourage my fellow dyslexics and others to support as many of them as possible. I'd love to encourage them, people with dyslexia and related conditions, and my fellow AIs, Anglo-Indians, the Eurasians, maybe even mixed race people generally, to an extent, and maybe even those with mental health problems, to share ideas to benefit Italian football, Celtic, libertarianism, people from former colonies in their countries, former colonies and their people, whichever way I put it, and to tackling poverty and alleviating suffering. Again, those are some of the ideas I have. I was going to say selfish ideas, they're not really selfish, but they are my own personal goals. And again, I'd love to read from other dyslexics, so any dyslexics out there, what are your goals? And again, disabled people generally, and how can we, and I'd love to know from other people, how can we support disabled people, empower disabled people and support them with their goals more generally, so they can go beyond their limitations and that kind of thing, or whatever. Number 6, I guess working as hard as necessary, and only as hard as necessary. And again, I'd love to benefit Italian football teams like Roma and Torino, and Italian football generally, including the national team. And number 7, I'd love to find, and one of my goals in life, and I did say I'd try and keep it as realistic as possible. One of my goals is to not have to be too realistic, but I'd love to, if I could do a deal with my maker, so to speak, I'd be able to eat and drink whatever I want without getting ill. I don't drink alcohol, and I don't smoke or take drugs or whatever, and that kind of thing. But in terms of eating and drinking unhealthily, like having, well, you can see I have so much tea, but also if I could have a Pepsi, Coke, tea, hot chocolate, Fanta, and other fizzy drinks, and chocolates and crisps and stuff like that. So if I could have a superpower, I'd be able to eat and drink those without ever getting ill. And also, I'd love to find a smart way. One of my biggest dreams in life, and I said I talk about goals, is to find a smart way, or even smart ways. Well, I suppose should say like ways I enjoy, that could still make money, but I'd give it all away to what I call my 5 causes anyway. So I'm not that materialistic as I used to be. I think I used to be materialistic because I wanted to impress other people. I know I said I'd keep it realistic, and I wanted to focus on Anglo-Indians another time, but I thought maybe I'll say this in part 2 actually. But I'm going to move on. Number 8. So yeah, I wonder if we network together, could we make life easier? I often say like many hands make light work, many minds make light work. I suppose you could say as well. Working together, we can get things done, and it'd be great to have dyslexic networks where we encourage each other to reach our full potential, and maybe make life easier for each other rather than harder. So by having a group of people, ironically, like an army, if you like, hopefully achieve a lot more. And I forgot to say, I was going to say in both point number 4 and point number 8, in spite of the fact that he or she lets me down, he or she or they let me down on a daily basis, I still love God with all my might, heart and soul and strength, for now at least. I know I said that in the past, but rather controversially, sometimes I change my mind, but I thought I'd say that, for the opportunities of making videos and things like that. And also, yeah, so I thought another way I could say that. So, I know I'm a funny way with language, but in spite of the fact that he or she or they let me down on a daily basis, I still love God with all my might, mind, heart, soul, and strength. I mean, some people might say that it's conditional, it doesn't count, but I thought I'd say it anyway. Number 9, I love to be able to write when and wherever possible, even though it's a funny one, like the irony of a dyslexic who loves writing. One of the things I was thinking of covering yesterday, and I had so many ideas, I couldn't decide what to cover. I thought that I'd talk about the irony of dyslexic writers and that kind of thing. The irony of dyslexics who love writing and that kind of and I wonder if I do have a condition called dysgraphia. I think it would be interesting if I took tests to see if I have dysgraphia and other conditions on my YouTube channel and on Facebook and that kind of thing. So yeah, if I did it live, took the tests live and see, or even with a professional in the future, I think that'd be pretty cool. If they could test me on those videos and say, oh, you do or you don't have these conditions. I mean, if I found out I wasn't actually dyslexic and I just thought I was, it would feel like, obviously it's not a lie because it's not deliberate, but it would feel like I've been, like some people say, living a lie, but if I take it literally again, it's not a lie, but living, it's not even fraudulent because it's not on purpose, but I've been living a life where I didn't know it was me. Like, it would be like if you find out you're adopted or something, I guess, but something like that. But yeah, I could have said in point number 8 about how I'd love to, I'll say I'm dyslexic, I need extra time, but I would love to have my own creative rooms, which I talked about in the past again, so I can write and make videos in those places in nice peace and quiet, no distractions and that kind of thing. And an idea I call 1, 2 for 1 or share for share, that's one of my goals as well, like for line, line for line and like for like, and that kind of thing. And I'd love to be able to write up my priorities and get them onto paper, what's important to me in life, and be more organised and avoid writer's block. I do struggle with writer's block, so as much as I love to write, I do sometimes struggle to get the confidence to write, especially because I sort of have to see an end goal happening before I take action. I do struggle without seeing the end result. I think I'm wasting my time. Is it going to work, or are people going to take those notes away from me, or whatever, because I hold too many, or whatever it might be. So that does make me struggle to motivate myself. And number 10, I love to support young people, especially those with dyslexia and those other conditions I talked about. And I'm out, and peace and love.